Welcome to this session on data protection in academic research. As researchers, especially in fields involving human participants or sensitive information, we are responsible not just for data accuracy, but for how ethically and legally we handle that data. In this presentation, we'll explore key guidelines that every researcher should follow to protect participants, meet compliance standards, and maintain scientific integrity. Data protection is not just a legal checkbox, it's central to responsible research. When we collect personal or sensitive data, we have an obligation to protect privacy and prevent misuse. Ethical handling of data safeguards the trust placed in us by participants and the public. It also ensures compliance with legal frameworks like the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, which applies to all researchers in the European context. In research, personal data refers to any information that can identify a person. This includes names, addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers. It also includes indirect identifiers, such as date of birth or zip code, which can be linked to individuals. Even pseudonymized data, where identifiers are replaced with codes, is still considered personal data if re-identification is possible. Always assume more data is identifiable than it seems. Some types of data are especially sensitive and require stricter protection. These include health records, genetic information, racial or ethnic origin, religious or political beliefs, and sexual orientation. According to the law, processing such data requires a clear and specific legal basis, usually explicit informed consent. Be cautious and transparent when dealing with any of these categories, and always consult with data protection officers when in doubt. Ethical research is built on more than good intentions. Core principles include obtaining informed consent, collecting only the data you actually need, and using data for the stated purpose. Participants should always have the right to withdraw, and you should be transparent about your data practices. These aren't just ideals. They're requirements under international research ethics and European law. Informed consent is one of the pillars of ethical research. Participants must understand what data is being collected, how it will be used, who will have access, and how long it will be stored. The consent process must be clear, voluntary, and understandable, typically using simple, non-technical language. You must also give participants the option to say no without facing any pressure or consequence. Consent isn't a one-time checkbox, it's an ongoing responsibility. Collect only the data you truly need. For example, if age range is sufficient, don't ask for the exact date of birth. Avoid gathering unnecessary information, especially if it increases re-identification risk. The fewer details you collect, the lower your legal and ethical risks. Also, ensure that access to personal data is limited to those who actually need it. These simple decisions can make your study both more ethical and more secure. Anonymisation means removing all personal identifiers so that no one, not even the researcher, can trace the data back to an individual. Pseudonymization, on the other hand, means replacing identifiers with a code while keeping the key separate. Most research projects use pseudonymization because full anonymization is often impractical. However, remember that pseudonymized data is still considered personal data under data protection law and must be handled carefully. Every research institution has a data protection officer whose job is to ensure that your project follows the legal requirements for data handling. You should consult them especially if you are collecting sensitive data, using external tools, or transferring data internationally. They can help you review consent forms, assess risks, and avoid costly mistakes. Don't wait until your paper is ready. Get their input at the project design stage. Be cautious when using cloud storage or digital tools. Many popular platforms are not compliant with data protection regulations, especially if they store data outside the European Union. Avoid using tools like generic online survey software or commercial messaging apps for identifiable data. Instead, Use approved institutional tools that meet data security standards. When in doubt, always ask your data protection officer for guidance. An ethics review is required whenever your research involves human participants or collects personal or sensitive data. Before collecting any data, you must submit your protocol, consent forms, and data management plan to an ethics committee. This is not just a formality, it's an essential part of ensuring your research is legally and ethically sound. Skipping this step can delay your work and risk noncompliance with funder or journal requirements. More and more funders and institutions now require a data management plan, or DMP, as part of your research proposal. This plan outlines what data you'll collect, how it will be stored, who will have access, and what happens to it after the project ends. A good DMP shows that you've considered both ethical and technical aspects of data handling. Several tools are available to help you draft a compliant plan, including online templates from your institution. If you collaborate with researchers outside the European Union, especially in countries without equivalent data protection laws, you must take extra precautions. This may include drafting data transfer agreements or ensuring that your partners follow equivalent privacy standards. Be aware that even sharing pseudonymized data internationally can pose risks if proper safeguards are not in place. GDPR still applies to your project, even when data crosses borders. Let's take a simple example. You plan to conduct a mental health survey among university students. You decide to collect only non-identifiable demographic data and responses to standardized questionnaires. You store the data on an approved institutional platform and include clear consent language in your participant information sheet. You also obtain ethics approval before beginning. This setup aligns with data protection principles and ensures a smooth and responsible study. To summarize, data protection is not a barrier. It's part of good research. Respect the privacy of your participants, involve your ethics committee and data protection officer early, and plan your data handling in advance. Use only compliant tools and avoid shortcuts. Ethical data practices are essential for building trust, publishing your findings, and conducting research that stands the test of scrutiny. If you found this video helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with your colleagues. And if you have any questions or want to suggest future topics, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching and stay committed to responsible science.